everybody. Welcome to the Independent Mouth. I'm your host, Anthony. Once again, man, the luck that I have gotten to get some of these people to come on my show, right? A bum like me, the people I get. I got with me actor Michael Spedden. And for you guys, you want to go check out his stuff. It's pretty cool, man. He's in a show that you've heard me mention on here multiple times, which is Gotham. And he's done some other work. And what most people don't know is I actually went onto his show, and that was a lot of fun. But this is the point where I always have to say I need to shut up and let the cool people talk. So what's going on, buddy? Thank you for coming on.
Hey, thank you for having me. I was looking forward to coming on with you, and hey, I'm glad to be here, brother. Good to see you.
Good deal, man. Good deal. Can you give the audience a little background? Obviously, because of being, having the privilege to go on your show. Can you please tell the people about your show? And then I'm gonna start giving a little background digging that we talked about on that show to have some fun and go through. So can you
Okay.
please tell everybody the new stuff you're doing right now and explain to them directly, straight up, how they can get to it and what to expect?
My podcast is called Foul Players Radio. It's FOWL Players Radio. And I named the podcast after my murder mystery group, which is called the Foul Players of Perryville. We're down here in Maryland. Perryville is located on the Susquehanna River, and we're known for our waterfowl down here. There's probably about 42 types of duck, geese, eagles, osprey, herons, you name it. And we named the murder mystery company after that as kind of a play on foul play. My murder mystery group performs on trains and boats and for fundraisers and vineyards and breweries and all kinds of great places like that. And it's always a good time. My podcast was based on something I think is important. I've been a musician and I've been performing mostly in Maryland, but nationally as well since the 80s. And I've been, um, you know, I've kind of had a love-hate relationship with it. But one thing that I wanted to do was give history because I was at an open mic not too long ago. It was actually pretty long ago, but I was at an open mic performing, and a fella came in who I'm not going to mention, but was in a very legendary mid-Atlantic band. You may not hear of them when you get outside of this region, but around here for years and years and years, they're like the Rolling Stones.
Mm.
And so we were there and we were getting ready to play, and we were waiting to play. And the fella hosting it, he had one of his friends come in and said, "You can go on after that old guy over there." And I was like, "Wait a minute, that's just not some old guy, okay? This guy was a legend around here." And he was like I said, like the Rolling Stones. So I thought it was important. And the thing is, too, as time has gone on, from the 80s, a lot of the people in that scene have been, a couple of people have passed away, and the stories have gone with them. And I wanted to preserve the stories, the lore, to kind of preserve what a golden time, what a magical time that was to be playing music back in those days and performing. And there have been some great television personalities and great radio personalities from this region. And I wanted to kind of preserve and tell that history because a lot of people enjoy it. A lot of people enjoy the trips down memory lane. They enjoy the folks that I've brought on. Now, since I've met Steve Joyner, I've had some national folks come on, but the core of it has pretty much been the Mid-Atlantic region and the people that have performed there. And I've gotten a lot of great feedback on all the guests I've had, but sort of a special thing for the folks that have been the history makers in this region, because it really was a magical time to play. And it's kind of, I can kind of get into that, but that's kind of what I'm aiming to preserve is, tell these stories.
Well, I'll say this. Everyone always talks and they say when you listen to the Independent Mouth, it's mostly because they like the tone of my voice. But you, my friend, you've got my ear. I love it ever since I've been on. You constantly, the second you open your mouth, it reminds me of like a 1940s, 50s sports announcer for baseball. right? Or somebody on the radio that's just talking like baseball, right? Like a Vince Scully, something like that, for instance. Like
Hmm.
that voice, your voice transcends, and it has for years. And I know that there's tons of training that's gone in there and tons of time that you've put in to obviously get it in a way that you like. I mean, we know that, but
Hmm.
first, before I go down any routes, he's a true professional, folks, because he got to one of the stories that I was going to get to, and he got it out before I could actually ask the question. So he beat me to the punch on one of the stories I was going to tell him with the background. So touche to
Hmm.
you, my friend. I
Well,
know
we
that
can
you've been doing
elaborate
this.
more if you like,
Yeah,
but yeah,
no, 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 no. I know you've been doing this for a while. Good job. No,
thank you.
in your murder mysteries, if we can ever connect at some point, if I can just maybe jump out or interrupt whatever the murder mystery is and say that it was like so and so with the knife in the kitchen, right? Like if I
Hmm.
can just at some point jump out in the middle of the discussion and interrupt it at that point, I will do it completely free just for my own vanity because I think that would be absolutely hysterical. But um, so, we talked. Look, I was on your podcast, and we got into
Hmm.
some great stories. But I think one of the things that was really huge was the reinvention aspect of what you had to do, man. You grew up poor, or to that extent, right? You didn't come with all the bells and whistles and the opportunities as other kids going in, and you were going into music, man. And
Yeah,
that's
actually, yeah, I did grow up in a middle class household, and we did have it pretty well, but it was a blue collar area. I did come
yeah.
from three generations of steel workers, but we were by no means lacking for anything. But
But on the
I
other
did,
hand,
yeah,
you did not have these connections where you could just like, okay, I want to go into music, and
right,
you've got
right,
an easy
right,
path,
yeah,
to do
yeah,
this, right? So
right, right,
even then, middle class, look, when you grew up too, right? Middle class then was just having more than you would necessarily need,
right,
right? And
right,
and, and that's
right.
what you did.
Hmm.
And so I grew up the same way into the 80s where
Hmm.
yeah, my father was a truck driver. I
Yeah.
was I was considered middle class, but
Hmm.
sometimes there were times where they were still going check to check. So I'm not calling you where you were, not living in a home or not,
Oh, sure,
didn't have
right, right,
didn't
right,
have
right.
meals, but you didn't come with the bells and whistles that some of these other people that we
Oh, yeah,
we
yeah.
we become accustomed to know about. And that's a big thing for kids now, especially with all this content creation, where
Hmm.
you have these kids who think it happens overnight. You went
Right.
through that struggle. Can you kind of, quickly go through how that started and how you were able, what pivot point were you getting to, and that's kind of alludes into the story that you originally told.
Okay. Well, yeah, you know, when I got into music and things like that, I always had something inside of me, a desire to create, to create. And there were a lot of things that I liked growing up that kind of inspired me, and things that I kind of wanted to emulate. For lots of reasons, playing music. I wasn't particularly good at sports. I'm a big guy, and it's a shame. It's a waste of good size. Um, that
The
I
meat
wasn't.
shield, Michael,
Yeah,
you got to be a meat shield, right?
that's right. Yeah, I was okay. I could get on some teams, but I was never a star. And but I also really loved music, and I loved listening to music as I was growing up, and I wanted to do that as well. And I always wanted to kind of create things that were mine. And so I got into playing music, and we really kind of struggled. We to get out there because we didn't really want to be part of the mainstream. A lot of people say that, well, we're not mainstream, you can't categorize us. But my good friend that I met, and started playing music with, Fritz and I really were kind of going down an unbeaten path. We were kind of, trying different things and trying different sounds and different, writing different ways. And, we were doing fairly well. We were getting, some good attention. We're getting some negative attention too. There were some places we played which we really should have had the Blues Brothers chicken wire up. But there are other places where people really kind of embraced us and everything. And playing in Baltimore, Baltimore had some really good bands back in those days. Baltimore had good bands; they sounded good, had some pretty good songs, looked good. But as far as originality and them kind of creating their own scene and their own sound, unlike Seattle or New York or LA. In a lot of ways, Baltimore wouldn't have known original if it would have smacked it in the face with a frying pan. So we did play a little bit more in DC and New York as well, where people were a little more open to things off the beaten path. And we were just really trying to kind of march to the beat of our own drummer, write different songs that were a little bit different. And we got so far, but then it got to the point where I was like, um, I'm still living with my parents. Um, I don't have that great of a job, so I got myself, I kind of pulled out of it for a while, got myself a better job, finished a degree, got married. That wasn't a good thing, and then I ended up going back to playing music later on, and it kind of led me to where I am now. But
Mhm.
I always, we were kind of, Fritz and I were always kind of like the underdogs. We were kind of doing our own thing. Neither one of us, as far as playing music, as the 80s was definitely an era for good looking people, and neither one of us were particularly chick magnets at the time, and but we had good music that people appreciated. So, we kind of went with that for a while. But then I think things in that band kind of ran their course, and the other members of the band weren't really interested in pursuing it anymore.
Can you
Um,
talk about that though? Like, at that point, I'm always fascinated with this because I didn't do music that way, but I understand from a creative standpoint, it's not like you're jumping, say, from one company to a next. A lot of people understand
yeah.
there's some real viable relationships there, man. And how do you move past that, right? Like,
Mhm.
does it feel like it's a real relationship breakup, right? Did you hold any animosity? Were how did you kind of step away from that and be able to move forward without feeling like just everything broke?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. At the time, the band Orange Sheet Parade that I was in broke up. I took that one to heart
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
That was hard because I had put my heart and soul, and Fritz had too, into this band. The other
Yeah.
two guys, they were just like, they were just kind of there for the ride. Um, weren't really as dedicated as we were. We took it very seriously, and it was our baby. And like I know, you have kids. If somebody didn't like your kid and made it known, or didn't care about your kid, or was kind of like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you would really take that to heart, and it would, and so it got to the point where we had been doing well. We had been showcasing, we've been playing, opening for some national acts that were kind of smaller. We were playing in some bigger clubs. We had done CBGB's in New York, we had done the
Mhm.
930 Club in DC, the 15-minute club, the Rage in Baltimore.
Yeah, you were
uh,
growing. You were
yeah,
on the that's why I'm saying you were on the
yeah,
path, and so
yeah.
in your mind, right? I
Hmm.
have to think of this realistically as like, okay, we're gonna make it, right? And so
Yeah.
when that breaks, where did that take you?
Well, when it broke, I'd stayed with Fritz, and we were at first we were going to try to just keep Orange Sheet Parade together, but with two different people that just replaced the two that didn't really want to be there. And then it got to the point where he started writing some stuff that was a little bit different. And when we would have our rehearsals and our practices, when we would be writing, he kind of changed styles a little bit, and I felt like I was just bringing nothing to the table, just because nothing
Mm,
inside of me went with
yeah,
that music that they were writing. Nothing that I could put with it, playing bass and everything, went with that material. It didn't fit the material,
you
and I
grew
wasn't
apart.
inspired to write that way. I
You
wasn't.
grew apart.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did, and so that's when I kind of jumped ship for a while. Went back to the drawing board, kind of looked for stability, and I was really doubting myself too. It was like, God, this is a joke. This is like, you're almost like predestined to make it. If you're either going to make it or you're not. People are out there, pounding the hell out of the pavement and everything, and just not getting anywhere. And I guess that's why they call LA, they call that the Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Because so I kind of went back and got some stability. But yeah, I noticed too, in the early 2000s, especially when social media got back out there, a lot of bands in my area that were, fairly big, or, at least, prevalent on the scene, started getting back together and having reunions. And, I was going through a divorce. I was at a pretty low spot. And I was like, you know what? After
Wait,
the
so you're
divorce
saying
is
so you're
over,
saying you technically like already went through a divorce, right? With that band.
Yeah.
Now you're
Yeah.
literally
Going
going
through a
through a
divorce. Yeah.
divorce.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that those are two catastrophic events in the
Yeah.
life of a creator, right? So
Hmm.
your
Yep.
personal life is in shit because you know how it goes, right? It's really
Hmm.
hard to balance and marry those, right? It's
Yeah.
really hard to have both of those really going straight to the moon, and it doesn't happen often for a lot of
Hmm.
people. You're
Right.
either sacrificing the personal life to make the creative life, or you
Hmm.
sacrifice the creative life to make the personal life. So you got a taste in both, and then it
Hmm.
started to drop, man. Where were you? Like, where were you creatively? Where were you, in a spiritual sense? Where were you? Like, what were you thinking at that point was really your next step, and then what actually became your next step?
Okay. Well, when I was going through my divorce, when my marriage, dissolved, I was like, you know what? I was kind of thinking back to music because I was starting to see the social media and people, and this was back like at the dawn of MySpace, when I started seeing people getting back together and playing
Yeah.
again. I was like, you know what? I kind of looked at myself. I kind of went from this is just a pipe dream and this is crazy to I was kind of like, I kind of went, got into, you ever see Rudy?
Yeah, man. Yeah, like I'm the guy, just so you know, I'm the guy who's watched Rudy, rooted for Rudy, but I'm
Uh huh.
also the guy who went out and was inspired, when Sylvester Stallone was fighting Ivan Drago, right? When
Right,
Rocky
right,
was
right,
like,
right.
I went outside and practiced all that training that he did, right? Like in the
Hmm.
backyard as a kid. So you're talking to the right guy, man. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
living it.
I was kind of like Rudy. I was like, you know what? You only live once. And even though if I don't you make $1 million doing this, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to perform my material.
Yeah.
And I got with a good friend of mine and we made a pretty good songwriting duo. And we still play together.
Hmm.
From time to time. We don't do it. He has another band too. So we kind of do our thing every so often. It's kind of a comedic acoustic duo. It's kind of like the Smothers Brothers meet Frank Zappa because some of our songs are disgusting, but
Oh, but
it's
you need to start reading some sports games and sing in between, bro. I'm telling you right now,
mhm,
that might be the next pitch.
right, right. So we started doing this, and we were having a good time at it. Not everybody appreciated it, and not
Yeah.
everybody got it, but we were doing it. And I got better at singing. I got better. I switched from bass to guitar, so I was learning guitar and playing. Getting better at that. I developed my voice, and I was enjoying it because we had written, I think probably close to 50 songs together. Some good, some bad, but they were ours. Ones we could put our name on,
Yep.
and so eventually, we were doing that, and then I was by chance, I was giving somebody a lift home from work, and he said, "You sing, right?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, a bit." And he says, we're auditioning out at the Baltimore Actors Theater. We're having auditions for Jesus Christ Superstar."
Nice.
So I said, "Okay, yeah, yeah." I said, "Why not? Why not?" So I went to auditions, and I didn't know anything about auditioning for theater or for acting or anything like that. What I did is I took my camera. I had a camera, a digital camera. I put it up on a step ladder, and put a piece. I was renovating my house at the time, so I put a piece of drywall up behind me, and I took my first headshot. And I had black and white mode, so I gave him a black and white glossy. I was able to do that with my computer, and that was my first headshot. Little did I know that black and white headshots are going out of style a while back, but I was like, oh, black and white 8x10 glossy and a resume. And I just gave them all the bands I was in on my resume because I had never really acted. And I went in and I did that. And I ended up, getting asked to do different things. I didn't really have to audition, but a lot of the things were ensemble. And actually, during Jesus Christ Superstar, that's where I met my current wife, who is also an actress. She was choreographing and kind of running the show for the director, and so we ended up meeting and getting together, after the run. But we became good friends at the time. Then I kind of got asked to do different things, and I was asked to do some local commercials. I was asked to do like some commercials that were just on the internet for some local businesses. And I did a voiceover for somebody. And I just started building my work little by little. And then I, you know, my wife said that I was doing an audition on video with my wife, and I was reading the lines, and she was responding. It was her audition, and her management said, who was that reading with you? She said, oh, it's my husband. They said, we like his voice. Why don't you have him come in for an audition? And I was like, okay, yeah, well, here goes nothing.
Yeah.
I have no shot in hell at this, but I'm just going to go in and do my best.
That's
So I
it.
went in and played some silly songs on guitar for them. They gave me a scene to do. They gave me a monologue to learn. And I went in and I was like, oh, here goes nothing. Here we go. But then they ended up signing me. It's a CPM talent management out of Voorhees, New Jersey.
Nice.
And Georgianne Brucese, who's my manager, liked it and signed me. And I was like, holy cow. It's like, what just happened here? I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Now I have people. What the hell? Now I have people. So I just started getting sent on auditions. I go to New York for this, Philly for that. Not long after I signed on with her, I got Gotham. And my audition for Gotham was I auditioned for two parts in that episode. If you saw the episode, I auditioned for the part that I got, obviously, which was Dale.
Mm-hmm.
And I also auditioned for a mutant that was living in a tunnel. If you saw the episode, he fought Bruce Wayne and Alfred down in the tunnel and mauled somebody. So the audition consisted of A, making dumb faces, and B, making snarling noises like the Tasmanian devil. Okay, so I was obviously a better dumb face maker than a snarler, but
Right,
obviously,
Michael. I was a pool boy on As the World Turns. Okay,
that's
I was
great.
a pool boy. I was an extra with Dave Chappelle. Now this is a quick funny story. He'll never
Mm-hmm,
even remember me because I'm just insignificant. Doesn't make a difference. But I was
mm-hmm,
new getting into it, man. I had won, I've told the story millions of times. I won a modeling competition at like 14 years old. My aunt put me into it, and it just kind of stepped into it. I ended up winning the nationals
uh-huh,
and got a contract to Ford, but I was too stupid to want to do it because I wanted to play hockey,
mm-hmm,
right? So I just kind of gave up on that stuff and then got back into acting a little bit later. Had heart surgery. After the heart surgery, didn't really,
mm-hmm,
wasn't able to really continue it, but the Dave Chappelle one, when I was there, man, I was in the bar scene, like you're saying, right? It was
mm-hmm,
insignificant, right? But it's a lot of hurry up and wait, right? And
mm-hmm.
you're kind of waiting around.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
ended up meeting somebody who I loved a lot, which was Dave Chappelle.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
I just met him quickly for a couple minutes in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And that was good enough, right? For the experience. I wasn't even looking at it for money, but it was just like, hey, I got to meet him, you know?
Right, right, right. Well, that was one of the wonderful things about Gotham with me because um the the one thing was that when I got to set, I met the man who shot me. His name was Andrew Sellon. He played the part of Mr. Penn, who had Mr. Scarface, the mannequin, with him.
Yep.
And when I was there, I got there early in the morning, and it was 6 o'clock, and I was in my dressing room just kind of looking around, and they brought my clothes down to me.
Yeah.
And a little knock on the door, and I look over, and I was like, "It's Mr. Penn! Holy cow!" And because I've been following the show, and he
Yeah.
came in and he said, "Welcome, welcome to the family." And he was very kind, and he was just very. He spoke. We spoke together a lot in between
Mhm.
shots. While we're on the set, and he was just great to me. And I tell you what, to have somebody to work with him and Robin Lord Taylor and Corey Michael Smith were both wonderful. They were all wonderful. And I tell you what, I couldn't have asked for a better three people to make my national network TV debut with. I mean, because the three of them were just absolutely wonderful to me, and I wouldn't feel nervous, and they were just very friendly and very down to earth people.
That's the
Um,
stuff I love. That's
yep,
what I wanted to get out of it was that right there, man, because
yep,
that is the stuff, to
hmm
put some faith back in, you just always hear horror stories.
hmm
You always hear horror stories. I just had a bad experience. This person was a jerk, right? Like I met Dave
yeah,
Chappelle and I'm like, I love him. I love
hmm
this dude, right?
yeah,
Darnell
yeah,
Jones. he was over there too. He's running around. I'm like, dude, these guys are the most down there. I love those stories. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And you had a
Hmm.
good time. You got some experience, and
Yep.
you were like, hey, I can do this.
Right, right. And you know what too? When I made myself a little Twitter account, and I'd never used it, but the night that the show went on,
Mhm.
a bunch of people were like, tweeting out, "Poor Dale, Dale's dead. He was a one time." And I would tweet back to them, I'd say, "Well, yeah, I didn't last too long, did I?" And they're like, these people are probably looking at their phones like, "Ah, it's the guy, ah," But I, but something, I there are a number of fan groups on there and these people are very, very nice, and they absolutely love Gotham, and they want to. They're trying to lobby to bring it back. They're trying to get either Netflix or, they have like this whole campaign of people that are. They would like blitz a
Yeah.
whole bunch of tweets to Netflix and blitz a whole bunch of them to Amazon, and they've been very, very nice to me. A number of them have just emailed me questions, and I've spoke to them and everything and just answered their questions about the show, and they've just been very, very nice. I mean, they really, really love Gotham, and I was honored to be part of it. And I was honored that they were nice enough to not just say, "Oh, you're just some guy that died." I was part of the show. I mean, again, I wasn't the star, but I had my moment on the show, and it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. And I had Andrew Sellon as a guest on my podcast. He's a very nice person, and it's been great. It was just a great experience. Now, the one bit of sad news was that one of my foul players, his name was Greg Crow. He was
Mhm.
on Gotham the season before I was. And if you followed the show, there was an episode where a man is sitting at the bar eating pickles, and then Poison Ivy comes in and kills him.
Yep.
Okay. If you remember that one, that was Greg Crow. He recently passed away. He was one of my
Oh.
foul players. He was from Cumberland, and he, unfortunately, this past February, it was his time, and
Yeah.
we miss him. We miss him. But he said the same. He had the same experience with the people that he worked with on Gotham. They were very family, or like not family oriented, but family like, very neighborly, and it was just a wonderful group of
No,
people. And
that's amazing. Look, that's amazing. And the only reason why I say no is, when you deal with comic books, when you deal with wrestling, when you deal with stuff like that, man, the fans can be ruthless because,
mhm.
to some of them, it's everything, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they really treat it that way, and they can really be out of character and be crazy. But what I
mhm.
what I tend to find is a lot of times those are very far few between, right? They're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
always there, but when they're
mhm.
there, they're super loud, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I try not to look at it too bad that way because we have to kind of get conditioned that, everybody's going to be, poking around with something like that. But you have other stuff as well.
mhm.
Dead Reckoning, right? You've had some other things that you're
Yeah,
that you're
yep.
doing. So give us a little insight into, then what? Because these aren't exactly the same, type of roles necessarily. So how
Yeah,
are you kind of
yeah.
branching out? How is that feeling to, be, spread the wings a little bit?
Well, after Gotham was over with, and they filmed it, and then I went back home to Maryland, and I was like, well, what's next? So I kept going on auditions, and I went up to New York. Probably about 2 weeks later or so, after we filmed it right after Thanksgiving of 18. So I got another audition, and they said, my she sends me the audition. They said JG Wentworth is doing a new Viking commercial, and you are to go up to audition for the Viking. And I was like, sweet. So I went up there, and it almost reminded me, the audition room almost reminded me of the producers. You remember in the Gene Wilder producers when they were having auditions and they had like a whole room full of Hitlers, and they had that's what they had with Vikings. They had people with long beards and they were wearing horns, and they had
Yeah.
like one guy was wearing like he was wearing like a shirt, like a t-shirt, but he had like furs like over his shoulder, like
Yeah.
a fur thing, and he had a it looked like it was like a horn. I guess it was supposed to have water in it or something, but it was like a horn that he like had like it was like a purse strap with a horn.
Hold on. So you walk into the auditioning room and you're like, all right, I'm surrounded by Vikings.
Yeah, yeah, and there there were the other characters on the bus too. The folks like there were a bunch of people in there that were wearing construction helmets and just wearing regular clothes for some of them. So I went in, and what they would do is they would call us 10 at a time, and we would go in there and they would play the music, and then they had cue cards up, and they had like one color. They would write out the words, like one color meant everybody lip sync it. Now we weren't singing, we were lip syncing it. Now I can sing like that, but I didn't. It was a recording, and so what they did is red would be the first guy, and then I think it was blue or something, or black would be group lip sync. And then the lady, there was the lady who was texting, they had a person auditioning for that part. I guess that was in a different color. And then black again for the whole group. And then they would have like the different people. And the people that followed the directions, because there were people that weren't listening, there were people that were coming in at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh boy, I don't know how well this one went. But then I get the call, and I think it may have been like the same day or the next day, like, you got it. I was like, sweet. So I went up and did that one. We did that in Stamford, Connecticut.
Nice.
And we were on an actual bus, and we were driving around Stamford, Connecticut
with a bunch of Vikings. This is great.
Well, no, well, actually, I was the only Viking then because we were actually filming.
Nice.
But everybody else in the commercial were just wearing, like civilian,
Yep.
street clothes or whatever, except for Mike. Mike Funk was the construction worker.
Yep.
And so the thing about this was, I get up there and I go in, and we meet at this little. It was like a cafe, but it was like a new cafe. What I mean by that is, they have these cafes that are kind of affiliated with food trucks. And they have sort of like this neo gourmet kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like the kind of cafe we went to. We got dressed, they did our makeup, and I had to run out to the car to get something. And I'm walking by the bus, and I hear, people that were part of the production crew saying, "Did you see how tall that guy was? How's this going to work?" And I was like, "Oh crap, I'm getting sent home," because I'm 6'6". And if I stand straight up and down, straight up and down, feet flat on the floor, my head touches the ceiling in a bus. I'm as tall as the inside of a bus.
Yeah.
Okay. Now with that Viking helmet, the horns were an additional 8 inches high. And plus they had lights and stuff up in the ceiling, like between those racks that you hold on to.
Yeah.
So I had to stay low. So what they did while we were driving around the town and filming everybody else's parts, I stood in the little well that led to the back door, like those little steps.
Yep.
And then what I had to do, I had to kind of plan this. I had to kind of come in to the scene for my part. And like, I had to kind of go around the young lady that was up front texting and come like kind of like right into the camera. Okay. Now it was kind of tricky because, when the bus is moving, your weight is shifting involuntarily.
Yes.
And to make that smooth wasn't exactly easy. Plus, I was stepping up a step backwards and to the left, and then trying to come in smoothly around somebody. And I tell you what, that was the buns of steel workout. Okay. And by the time I finished that, you could have bounced a quarter off of my rear end with no problem. I mean, I
look
was
at
really,
that. We got some insider news right there, man. He's got a tight tuchus he got from doing a commercial. I like it.
Well, for that commercial, yes. And then then we ended up finishing filming it, and it was out pretty quickly. I think we filmed it on January 9th. And then I think it was out like maybe 2 or 3 weeks later. It was a pretty quick turnaround. And so that went well. And then I ended up getting, not too long after that, I got my first speaking part, and that was Kimmy versus the Reverend, the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt movie. And I played a bartender. And that bar pretty much looked like all the bars in my neighborhood that I hung out in growing up. So it wasn't much of a stretch for me to play that character.
Yeah.
And there were plenty of people in East Baltimore that loved their Skinner. So that was not an issue either. I kind of felt right at home there. And that was great too. I kind of went in and did the audition, and I had a coach, lady named Jill Stern, who coached me and prepared me for that audition. She was my acting teacher, and my wife and I would drive up to Voorhees, New Jersey, where she had like a little office, and she knew I had this part, and she knew I was auditioning for this part, and she knew the casting people. She kind of knew the kinds of things they wanted. So she spent time with me the whole class,
Yeah.
prepping me for this audition. And I went in the next day and nailed it. And then we filmed that in June of 2019. And that was a great experience too, because again, I was very fortunate to not work with somebody who was, you hear about different actors and different people that have temper tantrums and they don't treat other people well. And that was not the case either. Tina Fey was absolutely wonderful to me.
I've always been a
Ellie,
fan of Tina Fey. That's why I'm saying,
yeah.
with the different things and where you
Hmm.
worked, you've had a really good run, so far, and you've had a good run with really good people who,
Yeah.
have taken care of you. And I like, that's what I always try to put, because Hollywood itself is, just
Hmm.
under attack for so many different things,
Yeah.
right now.
Hmm.
And, that's, I always, like I said, the whole purpose of the independent mouth is always to go down the middle. And
Hmm.
I want to say that a lot of the experiences that I had while acting as well
Yeah.
were great experiences.
Hmm.
I didn't
Sure.
have,
Sure.
some of these other ones, whatever. And so I always loved it. I always loved
Hmm.
that part of it. And I always like, that's why I always like the creator aspect of doing a podcast, and then,
Hmm.
writing a book and getting stuff out there. So, you've had a taste of that. I mean, what are you looking for coming up? Are what kind of acting stuff are you trying to do now that maybe you could talk about, or some exciting stuff that you got going on with the podcast, or just any type of new projects that maybe you're
Hmm.
trying to spin out?
Well, I've got a bunch of folks that have come around in my area, um, in the Mid Atlantic region where I live, and have heard other people on the podcast because I've had some very popular bands from this area
Hmm.
on, and they're like, "Hey, man, let's do it." So I've had a number of people just reach out to me and say, "Hey, I played in this band." I was like, "I remember you guys. Hey, it's Mike. You remember me? Oh yeah, yeah, cool. Let's do it." So I've had a number of those folks lined up, um, to come on and do episodes, and we are opening back up. We've got venues opening back up, and the phone has been ringing off the hook for murder mysteries. So I've got
Ooh.
a bunch of those booked, not only for, well, we had the train in Western Maryland. We have the a boat, Maryland Party Boat in Middle River, Maryland. We have the State Theater in Havre de Grace, Maryland. We have Mount Felix Winery in Havre de Grace, Maryland. And we have a couple of other things where it's not been signed on the dotted line yet, but they are probably going to be irons in the fire. And I've got 20 wonderful actors who have just made this, since I took over the company 4 years ago. I've had 20 people who have been amazing to me and amazing to work with, and no problems, no issues with people. Everybody's done what they said they were going to do, and I cannot have any complaints about anybody. So I've got that opening back up. Back to auditioning. Auditioning was kind of slow. I did do
I
one
bet. Yeah.
small commercial last year, which didn't air around me, and I never even saw it. But I did that. That was just one job I happened to book, and that was like a big COVID set where everybody was masked up until I said my lines, took my mask off, and then right back on. And but I met more wonderful, nice, professional people that were just we had a common goal of getting the commercial done, and we got it done, and everybody was pleasant
Yeah.
and just easy to get along with, and I think it went very well. And that's really the kind of thing that I hope to pursue. Get some more professional jobs.
Hmm.
Just keep it going. Seeing if I can just hit the ground running again once things open up a little bit more.
Oh, I mean, I know. It's been everyone's kind of dying on the vine, trying to get, it's like anxious, right? I want to
Hmm.
get busy. I want to be able to do stuff. I want to be able to have some fun, right? Get
Hmm.
out, go to the park, go to the ocean, go wherever. This way you kind of get
Hmm.
out of that, normal spot. You know how it is. You've been creating
Oh
for a
yeah.
bunch of different things. So,
Hmm.
there are times where you could spend months inside your house, right? Not really miss outside, but to be able to like get out when you want is
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously a great feeling, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
How is that gonna, I mean, have you been looking at it too? Like, how does that look for you now, and what do you have anticipated going into 2022, right? Do you have a goal, any
Hmm.
goals set in mind? Do you want to, do certain things, check it off the list,
Hmm.
grow in a certain way? What kind of goals do you have leading into 2022 now that things are starting to finally get back to normal?
Well, I definitely want to keep my folks working. I definitely want to grow the number of venues that we have for murder mystery. The podcast, I would like to keep that going as well. Just give people a reason to smile, a reason to remember something, give them something to remember from yesteryear, remember the days of youth and
Mhm.
heavy metal and all that other good stuff.
It's
And
so funny because you say heavy metal and I know the story, but like if you look at you, you're like, nah, this dude's not heavy metal. But I
you
just
should
want
have
people
seen
to,
me 30 years ago.
I know this is what I'm saying. This is what everyone will trip out. So people have to go and check and put it together. Just name for the audience again the bands that you were in, so people can go look. And what's a
Mhm.
way that people can listen to some of that old stuff? Is it obviously is readily available, or do they need to go to specific spots, or can they not listen to it at all? Can you kind of educate them a little bit and
If
guide them?
Fritz's Dynamite, we never released anything. We had some stuff in the studio that we had started recording, but the band broke up in the middle of recording it. So it's not, I don't even know where that tape is.
Yeah, yeah. It's on
But
a tape for
Fritz's,
God's sakes.
yeah, it was, yeah, reel to reel tape. This was in 87, I think, 87 or 88.
I was 5 years old.
Yeah, I was 19 or 20. And then Orange Seed Parade, you can find it if you would like to purchase it. You can find it on CD Baby. You can also find it on YouTube as well. It's out there on YouTube, and you can hear that. I do have I do have a Facebook page of Orange Seed Parade with a lot of pictures and flyers and posters and different things from back in those days. If you want to look for that,
Oh
but
yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah. People, I want people going down memory lane, Michael. That's what I
yeah,
want. So
yeah,
because when they look at this and then they go see you, they're gonna go, holy shit.
yeah. um, so let me see. So that's where you'll pretty much find that material, Orange Seed Parade. You'll see it on YouTube. It's on YouTube, and then it's on a bunch of other sites too, where you stream it. And I end up getting royalties of about a thousandth of a penny. You know, kind of how
So
that works.
dust. You get
Yeah,
dust
yeah,
for the
yeah.
for the
I
for
get a
the
piece
old
of
royalties. Good.
dust, and after 1,000 downloads, I get a piece of dryer lint.
There you
So
go.
that's
Hey,
or belly
Dryland's a
button
hot
lint.
commodity now.
It sure is. So that's out there. Um, Let me see. I'm working on digging up some video from back in those days because we did have ourselves filmed at CBGB's in New York,
Mm-hmm.
and we do have a couple of shows out there that were filmed. There was a show called Rock Live that we were on in very early '91. And I know the footage is out there, and I know the fellow that produced the show, and I'm going to try to talk to him about. I got it all on VHS, but I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Those VHS tapes have been in my garage and boxed up for about 20 years, so I'm not sure how playable they are. But
I'm sure they might
yeah,
actually still work
yeah,
because
yeah.
those things like last forever, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
who knows? The issue is you actually can, which is the light
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the tunnel, convert that to,
Yeah, there's all those services out there where you can
yeah.
convert it to digital. So we've got that, and I'm thinking about releasing that stuff. Oh, Fritz told me he had a recording of a radio interview with he and I on 97 Underground from back in those days. And I'm thinking about talking to the folks that run 97underground.com. They brought that station back as a internet service.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about contacting them to see if they had a problem if we played that interview as part of my podcast. I was going to bring it on. And so that's something that I was planning on. And so that's where you can find those things. My music that I've been involved with. Um, the Uncle Moldy show, we've got a couple of things out there on YouTube, just some live footage of us on YouTube performing. That's really about all we have out there for that. And um, so yeah. So if you look up the Uncle Moldy show on YouTube, you'll find that. Yeah.
Well, that's now people can look it up. I'm sure they
Mm-hmm.
weren't going to know until you. That's why I get it out of you and drag it out. So let's ask a couple questions. I always try and throw this in here, get some different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
All right, breakfast, favorite breakfast, right? You got the choice between French toast, pancakes, or eggs. Which one are you going with?
Well, that's a good question because it could be two of them. When I'm behaving myself, it would be eggs. When I'm on vacation, it's going to be pancakes.
I'm French toast all day long.
Yeah.
All day
Yeah.
long. All right. At a barbecue, your favorite meal at a barbecue, and then what's your favorite side?
Oh, I would have to say steak or Pollock Johnny's sausage. That's a
Oh
local thing to Maryland. If you've ever had Pollock Johnny's, that is really good.
no, but look, bratwurst or look, I'm Italian, right? So we always
Yeah.
had different types
Hmm.
of sausages and everything else that they would break out. So I totally get it. Like when people say, do you like hot dogs? Like, yeah, I eat hot dogs, but reality of it is, if you
Hmm.
break out a sausage, I'll take that all day long
Yeah. Yep.
over a hot dog.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's Pollock Johnny's are legendary sausages that are like a Baltimore thing. And they're very, very good to eat, but don't read the numbers.
Yeah.
These things are valve closers, man, but they're good,
Yeah.
and then I would have to say, favorite side at a barbecue would have to be yellow potato salad.
Mm, that, or if you make the coleslaw right,
Yes, 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 yes.
right? The coleslaw has to be right. I like mine a little bit more sweet,
Mm-hmm.
on it. But when you get it and it's super crunchy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not runny, right? It's
Yeah.
delicious. Look, I'm already
Mm-hmm.
drooling thinking about it. Okay. Favorite thing to do, man. What's your favorite? Like you do a lot of creating stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the hardest things I think as a person who creates. What do you
Mm-hmm.
do to kind of get out of all of it, right? What's I guess the oddball thing you do,
Mm-hmm.
that isn't in line with what you do on a regular basis?
Well, I like to walk. I like to walk to clear my head, um, to kind of think of other things I can do. I what I do is I just grab my phone, put on a pair of headphones, and just walk. And I go for miles. I mean, I'll be gone for a couple of hours, and I just walk the neighborhood. I walk along the river, across the school field, um, all over the place. And I kind of use that as my escape. It's kind of therapeutic. It's kind of meditative in a way, and I just kind of use that to clear my head. It relaxes me. So that's what I do. I like to take long walks, sometimes with my wife, sometimes by myself. And what we like to do too is we like to go to Ocean City, Maryland during the off season and walk the boardwalk up and back. We'll
Been there a
get
couple
dinner.
times. I know it.
Yeah,
I know it pretty well. It's beautiful when it's going right, man.
yep,
It's a great place to go to kind of chill out.
yeah. We'll get dinner and then we'll walk the dinner off by doing a 5 mile walk from one end to the other. And yeah.
No, that look, I'm a game design. I got a degree in game design as well, right? It kind of
Hmm.
ruined, video games, right? I like to play video games, but that's still kind of in line with the stuff, and
Hmm.
creative that I've done, so it doesn't work. But along with you, it's come down to like, practicing with my kids
Hmm.
because my
Hmm.
son's getting older now, so to play baseball with him, right? My
Oh
daughter's
yeah,
liking
yeah,
it
yeah,
now, right?
sure.
So it is, man. It's really therapeutic to kind of, get out and do
Hmm.
something with them because, now you guys aren't arguing with each other, right? Everyone's been stuck in the house, and you got kids. It's really difficult with young kids, right? Because they're just bottled up pieces of energy, right? Like they're just
Hmm.
ready to pop and explode all over. So to get out, I made my son do plyometrics last night. And
Huh.
yeah, he's been hurting all day, all day. But but he got past some of that, some of that stiffness and that pain, and he can see that it, hey, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Like
Hmm.
this is going to
Hmm.
benefit me. And so he's already asking questions, and to get that and work with them and kind of get them excited is really cool to do.
Well, good, 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 good.
That's a lot of fun. But listen, man, I think I might have hijacked you longer than anticipated, but I got to
That's
tell you,
fine.
see, I hope that you at least had fun. It's
Hmm.
obviously different pace. I had a ton of fun going on yours, man. You let me yap away
Hmm.
and do my thing. But man, I'm really grateful that you came on here, man. And it's
Sure.
this is a lot of fun, and a lot of people are going to totally dig your story.
Well,
And the
thank
only
you.
thing I hope is that my fans support everybody like they do when they come on here. So I always tell them, guys, you need to go there and support the murder mysteries. You need to go there and support his podcast and his work. And can you
Mhm.
please, Michael Spedden, please just give everybody the round robin of where they can find you and all the details, please.
Sure, sure. You can find me in the JG Wentworth commercial a lot of times on ID Discovery during the day. You can also find me, I think, on HLN, I think it is during the day. It runs pretty regularly. And you can find Gotham season 5, episode 8. I believe it's both on Amazon Prime and on Netflix. You can find me in Kimmy versus the Reverend on Netflix. Yeah, not the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt series, but it's on there separately as Kimmy versus the Reverend. Foul Players Radio, www.foulplayersradio.com. The Foul Players of Perryville is www.foulplayersofperryville.com. And look around for Orange Seed Parade on YouTube. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it where you can find me. You can also find my Michael Spedden IMDb page if you want to look at that. My headshots are on there if you need something to scare the mice out of your house at night or something, and or something for your
And
dartboard.
always use him for a bodyguard reference if needed, because he's 6'6", right?
Yes,
And
yes.
also, if you need a 1950s or 60s or 70s baseball announcer, he's got the voice for you too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. One of my favorites of all time that I listened to growing up, and I guess we'll have to have a conversation sometime because I grew up, my formative years were watching the American League East in the mid 70s through the 80s. And we're talking the Earl Weaver Orioles and the Billy Martin Yankees and the Don Zimmer Red Sox and Jim Rice and Carl Yastrzemski, Reggie Jackson as an Oriole, Bucky Dent, Ron Guidry, Jim Palmer, Brooks Robinson, Mark Belanger, Eddie Murray, Cal Ripken Jr.
He's trying to show off.
I'm sure I'm aging myself is what I'm doing here, but I see that I see your hat there, and I'm sure we could probably talk some good American League East from those days because I tell
Oh,
you what, that was a badass division.
badass division. Just if you really look at it over the years, and it's funny, right? Because
Hmm.
where you are, and I grew up in New York, and when you play sports
Hmm.
and you go through it, right, you always throw the jabs, right?
Hmm.
You always talk about it, right? Because that's how it's just the way it is over there, with people. It's the way
Hmm.
they grow up, right? If you're making fun of them, you love them, right?
Right,
And
right, right.
that's always the way the talk is. But the more and more now when I grow up and I really look back at it, I'm like, I really love the fact that I had that,
Hmm.
right? Because
Hmm.
it was a lot of fun. It pushed you
Yep,
to want to be better, right? It
yep.
it forced you. It brought out of you the things maybe you didn't believe in, and it gave people stories. So
Hmm.
I always like that grit that's in there. You know what I mean? Whenever we were playing down, teams by your side, man, it was always good talking a little bit of trash going
Oh
into it.
yeah, oh yeah. Are you Jets or Giants?
No, I'm Giants.
Oh, you're Giants. Okay, okay. How do they? Is that just like six of one, half dozen of the other, or is
Yeah,
there a
usually the
particular?
Jets fans are pretty much like you're born into a Jets family, and then
Okay.
everybody else is Giants.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and I guess I look at it as if a New York team goes to the finals or it's going deeper in there,
Hmm.
I'm rooting for either one, like the Islanders that that just beat Pittsburgh, right, and they're in the Stanley Cup
Hmm.
playoffs.
Sure, sure, sure.
They're going into the second round. I'm like all for it, man. Let's go Islanders. Let's go Islanders, right?
Hmm.
I'm not giving up on my Rangers, but they're not there. And I
Yep.
want New York to win, right? Like I want them to take the crown.
Yeah.
So that's the
Yeah.
way I've always viewed it. And But no, now the Knicks are in the playoffs, right? So New York's kind
Hmm.
of coming alive.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I really think that that's good for them, man. I really think, especially after 2020, like when you get a big city like LA,
Hmm.
if you get LA to play New York, it's such a huge draw.
Oh,
It
it is.
brings it
Yeah.
out. It betters the division, and
Yep.
now we're finally getting those teams where the abilities there for them to compete, right?
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
believable. So now that excitement's building because what do you do once you bring an East Coast team and you bring a West Coast team? Everybody in the middle kind of picks a side and then they collide in the middle, right? For
Yeah, yeah.
viewership. So I always love that kind of story, man. I love
Hmm.
that kind of story, and I just hope that it actually comes to fruition. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Over the next couple years, where we're talking each sport, from East Coast and West Coast are really battling it out. Man, it would just be so great for the sports.
Yep, yep.
I really
Sure
believe
would.
it.
It
But
sure would.
look, man, Michael Spedden, thank you so much for coming on the Independent Mouth. I hope you had a good time, man.
Oh, I did. Thank you, Anthony. I really appreciate it.
I hope that my fan base is and will support you because they do. Everybody, we've seen it happen. We've had people on here, promoting their stuff, and
Hmm.
people have went and purchased their stuff. But I'm gonna absolutely keep you in mind, man. I got a couple things brewing, and I've absolutely loved the conversations I've had with you. So we'll definitely
Sure,
be
sure.
talking more soon, man.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you again, Anthony. I appreciate it. I definitely appreciate it. And I hope to hear from you soon.
Absolutely, man. You guys need to go support this man, Michael Spedden. Go support everything that he's doing. Go look back in the past too. I want you to harass him a little bit about the length of his hair, and also too, if you can send him some compliments on how much you love his voice. I know he likes to hear it because he's a really good dude, and I'm really blessed to have him on. So, Michael Spedden, thank you so much for coming on, and
Thank you.
for the folks out there who listen, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. You know how much I love you and I love the support and appreciate the support that you give this show. So, once again, guys, thank you so much for listening. I am your host, Anthony, and this has been